Welcome. I'm Liz Taylor, ocean explorer, naturalist, and entrepreneur.
I'm Sylvia Earle. I'm an oceanographer, National Geographic explorer at large, founder of Mission Blue, and I'm an ocean elder. Thank you, ocean elders, for sponsoring this program.
And this is our show Dive In, where we host informal and open conversations on topics of wonder and interest. We are glad to be back, and we hope that everyone has made some time to get outdoors. Let's see. We're going to work through the conversation, and as we go through, please put your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many as we can towards the end of the program. And as we get underway, we want to remind everyone that
The world is
blue.
blue. Never forget.
And today, Year of the Snake, we're going to be talking about sea snakes with our guest, Dr. Elsburgh Trey, Octavius Clarke III. Trey is a prominent veterinarian specializing in marine animal care. And he attended the Delaware Valley School and the Ross University of Veterinary Medicine ahead of getting his board certification at the American College of Zoological Medicine. And today he oversees the care of more than 68,000 marine animals at SeaWorld Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Trey.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So I'm going to go and start to share the slides, but we're really curious. How did you get interested in this remarkable world of zoological medicine?
Yes, the world of zoological medicine is very interesting, and it's been a ride. Um,
How
so
do
I'll
you be a snake?
first, sorry, go ahead.
How do you grow up to be a snake vet?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a very good question. It took a while, but I always knew I was going to do it. The funny thing is, uh, I'm allergic to cats. And some dogs. And so when I was younger, I always wanted pets. And my dad one day brought home a Knoll lizard, and from there I went gangbusters, right? So I dove. I didn't read a lot I hated reading my school assignments and stuff in school, but I would get reptile magazines and reptile books, and my parents would take me to the zoo all the time, and I would absolutely love it. If we ever passed by a pet store on our road travels anywhere, I would make sure they would stop, and I'd go in, I'd check out, I immediately go to see if they have a reptile section and go and find it. Um, I got, to my mom's chagrin, I've had she's done a lot to do with me during my childhood because I had literally had everything under the book. I had boa constrictors, I had iguanas, bearded dragons, rainbow boas, monitor lizards, and then as a kid, sometimes you forget to close the tank lids,
Oh yeah,
and
been
they
there.
might have been out in the house. I distinctly remember my mother waking me up at midnight because she all of a sudden had a dream that we knew the snake had gotten out 2 days prior, but she's like, "You need to find the snake now. You need to find it." Uh, so she did a lot, and my dad is a ER physician, so he got to take me to some of his ER shifts. And I got to see some crazy. This is in California, and I saw as a kid, was 10 years old. I saw like gunshot wounds, people with eye injuries. I'll never forget. I saw this one little girl that came in. She got run over by an ATV, and the only thing
Oh,
holding her hand together was like this little piece of skin. And I was like, as a little boy, I'm like, yes, this is so cool. Um, but so I wanted to do that, but then I wanted to be a zookeeper, and my little 10-year-old, 11-year-old mind didn't know what to do. And then my mom kind of put it all together, and she's like, Trey, there is a zoo vet or animal doctor. You can be an animal doctor. And I'm like,
yeah.
and from then on, it was all about that. So high school, I knew I wanted to go in, ever since that age, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I wanted to do.
That's
I was good at music and good at theater, but I was like, man, this is it. So I always worked at pet stores, and then in college, went to Delaware Valley College in Pennsylvania, and the Philadelphia Zoo was about 45 minutes away, and so you better believe I signed up as a volunteer there, and I immediately went to the reptile house, and I was like, I'm going to be your guys' friend. You have no idea. And
Yeah.
after I had been in my own little insular world, like nobody knew I was that nerd because I didn't, people didn't, I didn't let the crazy out at school, right? I mean, people knew I had snakes, but they didn't know like I literally poured over the stuff. And so when I got to talk to like-minded people, the reptile keepers, I was just like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
So I worked at Philadelphia Zoo for a long time during college. And then I went to vet school at Ross University. And in vet school, you do everything, right? You don't get a specific pathway necessarily for zoo. You need to learn everything. And so you learn about dogs, cats, horses, cows, pigs, everything. And that is so critically important because that's the basis model. That's how you learn your medicine. And from there, my first job, I worked at a very nice Virginia clinic that was a dog and cat clinic. But luckily, there one of the main vets there was Dr. Bob George, who is probably one of the founders of sea turtle medicine and worked a lot with started the stranding program in Virginia and was also the head vet for Ripley's Aquarium and the Virginia Beach Aquarium at the time. And so I would work 5 days a week at the veterinary clinic, uh, you know, doing dogs and cats and stuff. And then one day a week I would go with him and work at the Virginia Beach Aquarium. So that was actually my first real introduction into aquatic medicine because all this time I was a total zoo guy, right? I love terrestrial animals,
Yes.
all the reptiles. I love the big mammals, the carnivores, and whatnot. Um, but I always enjoyed sharks. I always enjoyed fish. I love the coral reefs. I love learning about them, but I never really had, fish tanks we dove a little bit, but I wasn't. I was still kind of gung ho towards uh, terrestrial zoo medicine.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started, at the aquarium, I was like, okay, I really like sharks a lot more than I anticipated. And I really like fish a lot more than I anticipated. And so then comes time for my residency, and that's some of these pictures here. And it's kind of funny how life works. Um, Once again, there's for your residency program, it's if you guys have all seen Grey's Anatomy, right? It's and you don't have to have residency training to work in a small animal clinic. Like once you get out, once you finish your doctorate, you're able to work in the standard equine practices or small medicine practices. You can work that. But if you want to do specialize in things like ophthalmology, surgery, internal medicine, ER medicine, zoological medicine, then you typically need to do a residency specialized training. And that's a 3-year program typically. And there's not many zoological residencies in the world, let alone the U.S. has got the most highest densest concentration, and that's like at that time that was probably about 7 or 8 programs at the time. So I got lucky, worked hard, but got lucky and got my residency at North Carolina State University, which is probably one of the number one zoological residencies, especially for aquatic medicine. And I was for that rotation, they rotated between each year. It was either the aquatic medicine, so you do everything, but you kind of focus on fish and aquatic animals, or the zoological or terrestrial zoological medicine. So that's your rhinos, elephants, and things like that. So that
Yes.
year, I got accepted for aquatic medicine, and I was like, well, shoot, Trey, I guess I'm going to have to like aquatic medicine a lot more than I anticipated. This is the route I'm going to go. So, I accepted. I was like, yeah, this is going to be fun. There's a lot less known about aquatic medicine than it was during the residency. And if you can go back, Liz, to that picture, this is probably these two next slides are some of the coolest things to this day. that I've ever got to do, and that was during my residency. We had to do cataract surgery on an adult African bull elephant. And we
Wow.
actually had bilateral cataracts. So we actually had to do both eyes. So we did one eye first, and then several months later, when he recovered, then we did, or sorry, almost a year later, we did the other eye. And it's funny, people asked, how do you do, which side did you decide to do? Which eye did you decide to do first? Whatever side he laid down on first. That was the side we were going to do.
Yeah.
Um, as you can imagine, that's a big boy.
It's a
And
gender.
then some of the cool things. Oh, sorry, keep
Oh, yeah,
going
sorry.
back to the elephant. One of the cool things for elephants, uh, there's really no, especially at the time, there's really no anesthetic device that can provide the insufflation or the breathing for an elephant of that size, right? Their lung capacity is massive. So luckily, I've had a lot of great mentors in my life, Dr. Bob George and several members of the North Carolina State team, Dr. Michael Stoskoff and Loomis. Dr. Loomis was one of the pioneers for elephant anesthesia, and he created. We would use an electric leaf blower to help insufflate the elephant. So um, I was in charge of the breathing. Everyone had their own station. So I intubated. That's my hand fully up an elephant's mouth. We actually use our hand to find the epiglottis. We put the endotracheal tube. That's what that long tube is to breathe. Put it through the trachea, um, and then that's the apparatus we breathe for. And then once the animal naturally takes a breath, we have fresh O2 line going in. But once the animal naturally takes a breath, my job was to turn on the electric leaf blower and help
God,
insufflate that animal. So,
unbelievable.
and
That's
then,
creative. I love it. And
yeah, yeah,
elephants are sometimes aquatic.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
yes, yes, they are. Yes, they are,
They're
for
swimming.
sure.
Yeah, they're like a big aquatic mammal.
Yes. And they use that trunk as a telescope and periscope
a
for
snorkel,
breathing and whatnot.
like a snorkel.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a big snorkel.
snorkel along.
Uh,
And then
oh my gosh, it's amazing when you see them.
and then what do we
And
do?
sometimes
What happened?
when you have a person on the during the anesthesia and they're on the trunk because the trunk's one of the most sensitive parts, and if it starts moving, you let us know because the elephant's about to wake up. So
Oh dear.
yeah, yeah.
And
And
we do a
then
lot of
this,
work with the whales too.
yes. So this was also it's an unfortunate thing, but still kind of a really cool story. So once again, North Carolina doing my residency training, and we saw a large number of we're covering almost the entire coast of North Carolina, right? So the Outer Banks islands and things like that are all there. And sometimes animals would get into that chain of islands and not be able to get out. So we got a call one day on a Monday. It's a little bit of a story, but on Monday we got a call that there is a whale in the sound. So we're like, okay, let's go check it out. So luckily we had great connections with the Coast Guard, and they were doing a training exercise. So we got to go out on one of those go fast boats. I'll tell
Yep.
you what, I never felt more like a man because you're like going in and harnessed in on those on the saddle seats, and you're
Yep.
going fast. And
Oh yeah.
we actually found the whale, and it was swimming great. We were able to take pictures. And we're like, okay, this animal's doing okay. Let's see if it can hopefully get out of the sound. And so we decide, we leave. It was late in the day. We decide to leave the animal and try to get reports and let the fishermen know, let everybody know that keep an eye out for this animal. The next day, um, there's reports of fishermen saying, no, I think this animal, it's stuck. And there's a lot of sandbanks that go out further out into the ocean, right? A lot of sandbars. We think it's stuck there. So, but no one knew where it was. And so once again, we used our connections with the Marine Patrol police, and they agreed to take us up in their Cessna to do some observational work. There was apparently a man overboard situation. They're like, well, we could use your pair of eyes to look for a man overboard. Like, we'll take it. Unfortunately, we didn't find the man overboard, but we found the whale. And
Down
that
the whale.
picture on
That's
the
good.
left,
Yeah.
yeah, that picture on the left is the animal that was actually stuck on a sandbar. So it was a subadult
I'm back.
humpback whale male, and so we were able to take a boat out to it and actually, get in the water. We're, waist high in it. So this animal is stuck, and at that time we were able to get a really good assessment. Unfortunately, this animal had a huge, massive propeller cut that
Oh,
went down its vertebra, right?
no.
So
Yeah.
that's a bummer. And one thing that we really pioneered at North Carolina is, it's unfortunately the dirty work, but um, a lot of times when marine mammals strand, they're stranding for a reason. It's very rarely the land is the last hope, right, for animals. So sometimes you'll see a lot of good Samaritan. We all see the videos. A lot of good Samaritans will help push that animal back out into the water. But what you don't know and what we see is that animal swimming back out and then coming right back around and might strand on another beach.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, those animals have, either trauma issues, major internal injuries, or disease processes, cancer, things like that, or just old age. Hearing loss is a big one that we're finding out now,
Yeah.
that we're starting to do. So what happens with those animals, right? Those animals, if you just leave on a beach, they're going to suffer for days. They don't die a very quick death. They're able to withstand on a beach, and so uh, you have to euthanize them, right? That's the most humane thing to do. And so at North Carolina, we kind of developed a way to euthanize large mysticetes, and in that past slide, that's what we gave the animal another few days to see if it can. There was a big storm coming in, so that was a Wednesday. Thursday was a big storm coming in. We're hoping the animal kind of went out and would go out in the sound, but it didn't. So on that Friday, we came back and we were able to uh, successfully euthanize that animal, which was very good. And we actually did the necropsy and learned a lot out of that, and we were able to publish a lot of good papers from that. So that was
Yeah.
still, unfortunately, a sad situation, but really cool thing. I'm touching a live humpback whale.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And this looks like you've got a shark going on.
Yeah, this picture just kind of every now and then you get to do cool stuff, right? The top picture, I don't know, I'm sure you guys heard of the OSearch group,
Oh yeah.
research group that
Yep.
that work on the great whites. Well, I got to go out with them. We were studying sand tiger sharks, and we caught some tiger sharks, and were able to satellite tag them. So got to help do that. Man, what an amazing group, and they're doing a lot of good work for elasmobranchs around the world. And then randomly, my first big boy job out of the residency, I was the head vet for the Audubon Aquarium in New Orleans.
Hmm.
And at the time, they do a lot of filming, but this is back in 2014, so they did a ton of filming in New Orleans, and they were doing the new film for Jurassic World, the first one that came out with Chris Pratt. And they emailed the zoo. They're like, "Hey, we're looking for people with experience with dangerous animals." And my boss at the time's like, "Trey, you should do this." I'm like, "No, I don't think they're going to pick me." But then I'm like, "Yes, yes, I want to do this." So I sent them a picture of me and some of the animals I worked with, and sure enough, they picked me, and I was the Velociraptor veterinarian for the Jurassic Park movie. And I
That's
got to
great.
film with the guys for 2 weeks. I was just a little small extra, but I'll tell you what, it was really cool. Long hours. Hollywood is not glamorous at all. We were working 12-hour days in
Yeah.
the hot Louisiana sun. This is in June, July. And but I got to meet the cast. Like Chris Pratt was amazing, really funny. So yeah, and they got to once they found out I was the real deal, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what does this do this and do this?" So that was kind of neat.
And then you're doing a
Um,
lot with sea turtles too, it looks like.
yes. So then I moved 2016. I moved to SeaWorld San Diego, and I got had an amazing time working at SeaWorld. Really got a part of their rescue program. SeaWorld San Diego, SeaWorld in general is probably one of the largest animal rescue programs in the world for aquatic animals. And the SeaWorld San Diego was definitely one of the bigger ones, definitely in the South. There was a lot, we all work together, right? There's many different institutions up along the California coast and West Coast that work all hand in hand with each other. But we really had a great program. We would see probably close to 400 pinnipeds a year. We see close to 1,000 birds a year. and then a lot of sea turtles, depending on what it was. So that's us working on some sea turtles. Got to do some sea turtle surgery, which is I love doing surgery, and working on sea turtles presents a kind of fun challenge. They're not easy access to get into, so you got to do
No.
some maneuvering and a little small window to work from. So, but yeah, a lot of fun. And then while I was at SeaWorld San Diego, they're like, "Well, Trey, we're building a new park, and do you want to head this up?" So I became the director of animal health and welfare here at SeaWorld Abu Dhabi and helped with the design and construction of this mammoth of a facility, $1.6 billion out here in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. We built an amazing world-class facility, pretty much all the dreams and hopes we wanted to do through our 60 plus years of working and experience with SeaWorlds and aquariums across the world, right? We asked everybody, what would you like to do if you had unlimited resources? And we try
Hmm.
to put it all in here. And you know what? I would say we're probably about 90% successful in making that come true. So I've got to lead an amazing international team, which is amazing. So this kind of shows you a little bit of where we are. Sometimes in the U.S., no one kind of understands where I am in the world. So I put a little
Geographically
map.
challenged, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and you kind of see everyone knows Dubai. We're not Dubai, but Dubai is a city or a state, city and a state. It's almost like New York, New York, and Abu
Mhm.
Dhabi is this emirate as well. So almost the same thing. Abu Dhabi, the city, and Abu Dhabi, the emirate.
Yeah.
So we are on a place called Yas Island, which is a bunch of other theme parks, and we built there. So a
How did
little
that
bit
get
about
you to sea
myself.
snakes?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, talking about sea snakes. I know, I know. It's like I said, it's been a fun, wild ride to get here. So sea snakes, as that's honestly one of the cool things, the perks of coming here, because we knew there was a need. We did a lot of research prior to building here, and we just to kind of see what's going to be here because we knew we were going to build a massive rescue facility. We want to kind of to build towards that and make sure we can accommodate anything in the region. What we learned is that definitely a lot of turtles, a lot of birds. No one here was rescuing birds. But people, if they saw a sea snake on the beach, they simply bury it, and that would be it. They didn't want to deal
Oh,
with it, and that was it. So obviously, that's something we wanted to change. And I was super excited. There's as much as we know about snakes, there's still so much to learn about sea snakes. The
mhm.
Australians have done a great job of breaking that ice, but really learning about sea snakes in this region, there's still so much to be learned from. So there's just a really cool, everyone has to remember they're not an eel, they're not a fish, they're an actual snake, so they breathe air.
Mhm.
They don't have gills, right? They shed their skin. Uh, just like other snakes, they have their nostrils shut forward, but unlike other snakes, they have a laterally compressed body. So instead of a round snake, you're going to get a laterally compressed body with a rudder, and that's obviously to help with locomotion in the ocean. And then these guys have a really cool lung. A right lung is the longest. It's the biggest lung. It takes about three-quarters of the length. It's split into three sections, so they can hold their breath for an incredibly long amount of time. It's species dependent, but some can stay up for we think 2 hours, which is really really cool.
It's like
An interesting
Wouldn't that be
thing.
convenient?
Well, I know is that which I would love to do that. If we could do that, would be amazing.
Wouldn't
they're,
it?
they're, they're the
Um,
they're the ultimate sea serpents. They're
yes,
the
yes.
real deal.
These guys, I mean, they're so highly designed and built for the water that if they do wash up on land, they can't move at all because they're so laterally compressed. They can't undulate with the
Yeah,
same
'cause
locomotion like a normal snake
in
does.
normal, like if you see something, I don't know, like a sidewinder or a gopher
Yeah,
snake or something like that, they use those, what are they, the scoots on the bottom, like a
yeah.
hook. Yeah, and they just can really take off on the land. But these guys with that
These,
sort of
yeah,
V shape, they're kind of they're really
Well,
at a
especially
disadvantage.
especially the
yeah,
tail. It's like a paddle. It
yeah,
tends
yeah.
to,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's quite amazing how refined and evolved. They've made themselves for the ocean. And with that, um, these guys can do cutaneous respiration. So they can get some oxygen from the water through their skin, but they're mainly going up for breaths. But what it does help with is the excretion or the removal of CO2. So they
Mm.
can get rid of CO2 through their skin. So as you guys know, are avid divers, if you can get rid of CO2 from your skin, nitrogen, and all your byproducts, you have a less chance of getting the bends and things like that. So I mean, these guys are incredibly built for the water. Their skin doesn't allow for salt to penetrate it because they are hypoosmotic to the environment. So they're more waterbound versus in the salt water it's hyperosmotic. So things are trying to constantly get in their body. That skin helps protect themselves, and they also have a salt gland near the root of their mouth that helps expel the excess salt because their kidneys would be overloaded.
Oh
For
yeah.
us, our kidneys get rid of that. That's our main organ, right? For them, because they live in the saltwater environment, it would override it. So they're using their sublingual salt gland to really get into it.
It's interesting. So
Um,
almost like seabirds can get rid of excess salt too.
Correct.
Yeah,
And penguins have a huge salt gland as well
yeah.
because
It's
they're
really,
obviously they're huge
yeah.
seafarers.
I love this one that they've been known to dive up to 500 feet. It's just wild.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do that too.
Isn't that cool?
You go
I
ahead.
mean, alone, like there's no bell, there's no diving bell or anything. They're diving 500 feet, which is amazing.
Right?
They
That's like
typically, sorry, go ahead.
it's just the idea that they can kind of come up to the surface, take a breath, go down 500 feet, kind of do their hunting and whatever they're going to do, and then just kind of return that distance. It's just remarkable.
It is remarkable. They don't typically go that far. Usually they're found more in shallower waters just
Sure.
because obviously they're ectothermic, they're reptiles still, right? So they rely on the sun, they rely on the warmth of water. Um, and so they do stay in the shallows that typically we're reading literature states like less than 100 feet they will do. That's the typical range. And they're found all over Indo-Pacific, so Asia, Australia, there's none in the Atlantic because of how cold it is, and none in the Mediterranean as well. Um,
I
but
remember,
yeah, the most common species that we see is the yellow-bellied sea snake. We do see some of those species here.
Trey, when there was discussion back in the 70s of having a sea level canal, really bringing the Atlantic and Pacific together
Oh
in
yeah.
through Panama. Now there are a series of locks that are intended to prevent the mixing of the Atlantic and Pacific. But if there were, as has been proposed many times, even now, just to have a
A straight shot.
straight shot. One of the headlines expressing concern about this idea was there could be sea snakes on Miami Beach. Horrors. Okay, horror.
Everything else goes to Miami, right? So why
Yeah.
not sea snakes?
Why not sea snakes?
Yeah, why not? I think the waters would be a little too cold in the Atlantic for them, but who knows? That certainly that could be a reality. And
Yeah, I mean,
another cool thing, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying with is as some areas are seeing warming in general of waters. In fact, there was
Yeah,
even one up on the beach in San Diego a little while ago, and everybody kind of just like lost their mind. Uh,
yes,
that what is this on the beach? It shouldn't be here. But it
I,
had kind of come up with the warmer water.
I personally despair in a way that of the fear people have of snakes, whether it's on land or sea.
Yeah.
Kids naturally don't fear snakes, and some kids like you actually embrace them with this passion. I, I grew up in a household where snakes were, were just part of nature,
yeah,
not feared, but respected for their place.
Hmm.
But we teach somehow we whether it's spiders or snakes or whatever it is, we teach kids at a very early age to
fear.
protect their natural curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. You, You definitely obviously have to respect them because there's some highly venomous ones. But you're so right, Sylvia. I can't tell you how many times especially when I was working at the Philadelphia Zoo, I was part of the education department, right? And so we even have workers that would come in, guys that come in for the summer jobs. Like, I can't do snakes. I'm like, I'll give you one. I'll give you one. And by the end of the summer, these guys are like, you just debunked everything. And they're like, I love snakes. They're not slimy. They're not going to kill me every time I touch them. So yeah, I can't tell you how many times that's so true. We teach it at a young age, but you once you debunk people, they become a fan, or at least respect them enough that they're not going to kill everyone every time they see it. And just learning about their natural history, they're
Yeah.
fascinating creatures.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, yes, sea snakes are poisonous. They're related to
venomous.
cobras.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
But, and some snakes are and do cause human deaths occasionally. In some cases, but if you learn how to avoid traffic on the highway, you or it's common sense. You
yeah,
learn
yeah.
how to live compatibly with the dangers that are around us
Right.
and to respect their place in they've been around longer than humans by a lot.
Yeah. Oh, by a long shot.
Yeah. And
yeah,
so to respect what is their place and to find our place within the system that they have helped shape. And it's presumptuous of us to think that it's a better world if there are no snakes. I mean, it's a terrible thought.
overrun with rodents and
Well, it's not
everything
Oh
that's
else.
my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah,
by
So the same kind of you hit the nail on the head. These guys are so important to the environment, and we're still learning their role, right?
yeah,
These animals are
miracles.
apex predators, um, and they control a lot of sickness. And people don't realize too, from a veterinary standpoint too, those predators play a massive role in disease control in other animals. So, perfect example is in the U.S. is Yellowstone, right? Once they introduced wolves, they can calculate about the millions of dollars that has saved the cow industry, the
mm,
cervid industry, because they're removing those animals that are sick and would, therefore pass on the disease processes to other animals and spread it quickly through the herds. And they're significantly reducing that. So you can liken that to similar analogies to somewhat in sea snakes. And we're still learning a lot about their ecology, how important they are. But rest assured, these guys are apex predators and are extremely important into our environment.
yeah.
Uh,
They're very pretty animals too. This is great. You
oh
can
yeah,
kind of really see that sort of paddle-like tail.
yes. So some of the things that we see, and one more point too, people forget. Okay, they live in the sea. These animals are snakes, and they drink water, and they drink fresh water. They don't drink salt water. So what a really cool aspect of them is, depending on the species, some will go up into the riverbeds or estuaries where they're a little bit more brackish water, a little more fresh, or just drink fresh water. And then also others will follow the patterns of storm patterns,
Huh.
and so they'll drink the freshwater lens. So obviously, fresh water is lighter than salt water, so they'll go up to the surface and drink that portion of fresh water. So, that was probably one of the when early days when people wanted to keep sea snakes in facilities, they didn't recognize that, and sea snakes would die. But they drink water, guys, because they didn't realize they drink water. They just thought everyone
Wow.
drank salt water.
It's just like
Um,
things that seem so obvious and yet it's not.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
just didn't know. So, that was way back in the early 90s and upper 80s and stuff.
Yeah, I remember
So
at the Steinhardt Aquarium when I was
yes,
working
yes,
there.
yes. I
Uh,
had one of my dear mentors was one of the first ones to start that and then start the process of, hey guys, they drink water.
yeah.
So it
And I
was
think
quite fun.
I remember there was sort of a whole conversation about that because there was another zoo that had, I think they had brought in some very far north muskox of some kind, and
Yeah,
and they weren't drinking any water. And everybody's like, why aren't they drinking the water? And they thought to put a block of ice out for them. And they all ran to the block of ice and started licking it like crazy. And
Guys,
and they,
I've been trying to drink for a long time. You got to
yeah,
put what you need in there. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it was just sort of the form of it that they needed to really trigger them to drink. So they're sitting there being all dehydrated, because they really were used to kind of licking melting ice for their fresh water. So yeah,
Um,
Probably
this
eat.
slide, so we're getting a lot of since we've opened back in 23, we're getting a lot of animals, sea turtles mostly, but man, we're getting a lot of sea snakes, which is loving it because we're learning so much about them here. We're going to start working on some papers here, but we see strandings, and we think mainly because once again they get washed up by strong currents. These animals can't get back out.
yeah,
We're also seeing a disease process that we think that's happening with lesions within the spine, something that we got to look at more and hopefully to elucidate more and present on in the next coming year. We're testing a lot of stuff right now. Um, but when these animals come in, once again talking about freshwater, they're usually dehydrated, right? So we put these guys in freshwater, warm freshwater baths so they can rehydrate, and then we slowly bring that salinity up to around 32, 36 for the next over the next several weeks or several days, excuse me. We also, if we need be, we'll start them on antimicrobial therapy and give them fluids and whatnot. So once we get them in, it's pretty standard care for any type of snake. You can go to the next slide. Um, we will uh, work on them, but one of the biggest things is honestly, once again, public education. We have done a ton of workshops here, talking to a lot of the local beach hotels because that's actually mainly where we're seeing a lot of our animals is this huge strip of land, or sorry, this large strip of land that has a lot of hotels, and it's a very famous uh, destination for folks. And so we've gone to all these hotels, and these are people just like you. The regular common folks are calling us and letting us know these are here, and then the lifeguards are telling us. So we've developed really good communications with our local government facilities and our other partners, stranding partners, and the hotels, and just telling them how to do it. Right.
yeah.
So, before they would put the animals in a bucket of water and the animal would drown because it's so weak it can't lift its head to breathe. And so now we've got people responding. The middle picture there is we'll get turtles and snakes in the same instance when we go to pick up animals.
Wow.
So it's been really successful this year alone from January 1 to now, which is what, March 13th. We've gotten over close to 100 turtles and
Hmm.
over about 18 sea snakes that we've received through our rescue program. That's from January 1, right? So we're open all year, but we started new uh,
Yeah.
in our number placement, and it's really popping. So, but we're able to do a lot of cool educational talks, and once again, get people interested. Don't just bury the animals. Call us. We'll teach you about it, and we can save a life in the meantime. So it's been really really neat to do.
These are just
Uh,
great pictures too. They really show that really beautiful rudder-like tail, and
yeah,
it's so
yeah,
so
yeah.
looking from the rest of the
If
animal. So,
leopards are beautiful, so are sea snakes.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, there you go. That's a yellow-bellied sea snake, and their tail is just awesome, awesome reticulated pattern.
yeah. Do they
Yeah.
do they use that? Do you know if they use that sort of for any kind of,
That pattern, I
grooming,
don't I don't
camouflage?
know that for sure. But they do have one cool thing about sea snakes is they have a lot of mechanoreceptor or sensory organs, and they also have some in their tail as well. We think that is so they can avoid predators. They know when predators are close. So I thought
Mhm.
that was really neat. Not only for in their face, it's more for prey detection, but in their tail would be for predator avoidance.
Yeah,
So that was always really neat. And then these are just some of the kind of cool pictures of us working with sea snakes. So once again, sea snakes are all venomous. They carry a highly toxic neurotoxin or myotoxin that affects the muscles. But the good thing is, in the wild, these guys are typically they're not aggressive. You would have to really, really, really work at trying to get back these. And their teeth, their fangs that deliver the venom are so small that if you're wearing a wetsuit or things like that, it would be very hard to penetrate it. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
it can't happen. It has happened
Right.
before, people
It,
being venomated by it.
it
But they rarely do it. It's not their venom's not built for defense. It's um, built for prey hunt and for hunting, right?
right.
So for them, and then even if the snake did bite you, it does have to physically
Kind of
think, if
gnaw.
not think, but yeah, they can do dry bites, right? So they don't remember venom is a very expensive product that your body makes, and it takes energy. So animals try to use that wisely, and it's not always the time that they don't always use it.
Right.
Um,
So,
We
Trey,
so
I've been in the water with sea snakes on many occasions in Australia, Indonesia, and elsewhere, and they're so they're sometimes curious, but
yes, they are curious.
they're always gentle. I've never felt that they're after me. We're not on their menu. And
Yes, yes, we're definitely not on their menu.
yeah,
and they don't fear us, but they're also not aggressive toward us unless you're really harassing them.
well, then it's kind of
Yes,
more defense.
I'd be
Yeah,
defensive too,
defensive. Yeah.
but
Uh,
sometimes they get caught in fishermen's nets,
Yeah.
and in the process of, taking them, or sometimes they are targeted because of their skin. There is a market for snake skin. I've seen in Hong Kong markets and in China
mm,
leather made of. I mean, it's a terrible thought. It makes my skin crawl in a way, thinking
yeah, yeah, yeah,
these beautiful animals are just killed so that you can have a shiny belt or wallet or something. Even a s-
yeah,
e- even a man's jacket I've seen
Made
made
out
of
of
yeah.
sea snake?
sea
Oh,
snake skin.
awful.
It's
Wow.
disgusting.
That's horrific.
Yeah,
Revolting. You know, it
But
looks
it's,
much better on the snake.
yeah, but it is true.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree.
I think there's a lot of venomous species, even on on the land as well, that we just have this
I,
ridiculous amount of fear about, be it a rattlesnake or a coral snake or whatever it is, but people just assume that they're going to be, you know, slayed by these animals, and it's just not the case. And to your point, they often
No.
have to just do like a warning, like a dry bite, and just say,
Yeah,
leave me alone, back off.
yeah. Just leave them
Yeah,
alone. They do not want to deal with us. They will easily move away. They don't want to be near us. And you have the time. Yeah, they'll move away. The times people get bit, when people start to mess with them.
exactly. And I really like your little snake handling tube here. It looks like this little clear
Yeah,
tube. That's
yeah.
that's genius. And, and here's more of them. Look at
And
the
yeah, yeah, these are just some of the species. The one on the left is a really cool one we have right now. This is an ornate sea snake, we believe. And this guy came in just really weak, but really good size, in good body condition.
Mhm.
But he had had a leak in his lung, and so he had emphysema, so air bubbles kind of all throughout his skin. But
Wow.
he's resolving pretty well now. And this kind of shows them in the enclosures we have. We have heat own filters in them, and uh, these guys rest, right? They don't necessarily rest on land, but they
Mhm.
rest in rafts of kelp beds and um, you know,
Sargassum. Yeah.
sargassum flats. That's a lot where some hunt. And so having those places, we kind of modify them with having like little nets, but these guys utilize them, and we have some kelp in there too, some fake kelp in theirs, and they hide amongst it. It makes them feel secure. So yeah, it's a really cool get up and setup that we've done here. And then
It's
for feeding, um, that's a yellow bellied sea snake that we're some of the when the animals are in our care, we try to, usually are skinny. So we feed these guys about once or twice a week. And we also do freshwater baths once or twice a week so they can rehydrate themselves. So that's the yellow bellied sea snake eating some smelt and sprat that we have for them.
here's the tube
And
again.
yes, yes. That tube comes in handy in many, many ways. So this is us taking an X-ray, and people ask, "How do you take X-rays of snakes?" In a tube. So we'll take that tube, we'll have the animal fully in it, and then we can rotate it. So we'll get lateral views or what we call DV views from the top down, and just that helps us kind of explore, especially looking at the spine, any type of soft tissue lesions we can see. Then we do have the capability here. We're very lucky to have our own CT machine in house. So we also have thrown several snakes through our CT machine, and that just gives us better definition and better diagnostics.
Yeah,
So
you,
we're really trying to elucidate what's going on and better treat these guys, and then kick them out once they're all healed and whatnot.
yeah.
Uh, this is a cool video of us intubating one and just kind of shows you they're just like a normal snake, but how careful we are. We're wearing gloves. We're using cotton tip applicators to kind of secure the face so we're not around it. But their
It's
trachea is a
wise.
little small, and that's a catheter actually. And so we have a catheter, and then we're placing it next to our tube, and then our breathing apparatus, our anesthesia machine. So we're breathing for it.
Wow.
So that's how we can do. If we ever need to sedate an animal or go under full anesthesia, we're able to do things like this. I believe for this guy, we were debriding a wound and making sure that the wound, examining how extensive its wound was.
Really cool.
Yeah,
Oops.
and
Okay.
then yeah,
There's our last slide.
the last slide, courtesy of you guys of our. Um, I always love this picture. This is a great picture. This is our endless ocean exhibit. It is the largest um, uh, exhibit in the world. I think we have we kill it 28 million liters in this. We have our large manta ray, and then that is our newly dubbed lanternfish, our fully submersible supplied by Dewar. And
Yeah.
we're using it a lot. So it's been cool to see. And actually it's a great it is a great tool for us to monitor animals. Because
Yeah.
we're in there, we are not inhibiting their natural behavior. And so look at we can really get an uninhibited view of their behavior, which we can tell little things. If little things are abnormal, we can kind of treat it and address it immediately, which is really nice to do.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how the animals are so curious about it. They come over and especially the big manta ray, he comes by and he
Yeah, he
goes
doesn't care.
it's like his little dive buddy.
Yeah, he buzzes the tower. You know what I mean? Like this guy, he buzzes it. We're like, woohoo! You're a big
Yeah.
animal coming close towards us. All you can,
How,
you can think of like Jaws 3, right? With that's coming at you.
how deep is this tank?
This tank it is 26 meters, so over 60 feet.
Yeah. It's
So
it's
it's two atmospheres. It's
yeah,
two atmospheres, which is
Right.
kind of cool.
So it's a captive ocean.
it is.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone likes the little stats and things. What I recently read is we're the largest volume of salt water on land,
Huh.
Wow.
which I thought was interesting. So,
It is amazing.
Maybe the Great
yeah.
Lake. I mean, the Great Salt Lake might be a little bit.
Oh well, yeah. Well, in a building. Put it this way: in a building,
The
not.
building.
Yeah, yeah. Not natural. That's for sure. Not happening.
So how often do you get people that confuse the sea snakes with eels? Does it happen all the time or
I think it happens a lot. I think people are once again like the education we're trying to do. I think that's helping significantly, and so people are starting to kind of get it. And but occasionally people are like, oh, it's an eel. No, 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 it's a sea snake.
yeah.
Different. But yeah, people are starting to get it slowly and slowly. We're getting out to the public, and once again, like I said, we prior to us getting here, people were just burying them, and this year alone, we have 17, 18 animals
Wow.
that people recognize and call us, and yet,
It's so I think so satisfying and gratifying to actually have the public chime in on this and kind of really trying to be helpful and realizing it, be it a sea turtle or whale or whatever animal is stranded on the beach, that there's those resources there that can be helpful.
But
exactly, we can't do it alone, right? We're all in this together.
Yeah.
the facility that you have to really take care of the animals is is just extraordinary. I mean, to do a CAT scan,
I know, right?
Yeah,
CAT
yeah,
scan
yeah,
on a
yeah,
or
yeah. it's
Or
that has been a wonderful it's been nice to have, right? And like I said, we took all the I can't tell you how many phone a friends I did when helping, put instruments and designing the space. We took all the years of our experience. I think my boss Rob Yordi, who was the designer of this place, he calculated that he had about of all the experts, the workshops we did and experts bringing in and trying to design this, we had over 700 years of experience of different team members bringing in their years of experience to help design it. And it's been nothing is hard after this, I say,
Oh
because it
yeah.
was a challenge building from sand, this massive behemoth, but we did it, and it came out amazing, and it's been an amazing resource um, for the region, and that's what we're trying to be, right? Just another tool in the toolbox, working with other partners that have already been here and doing some of the things, and just adding to the adding to the toolbox for the Gulf region, which has been a really nice thing, and working with people, finding people that have, that maybe couldn't done this, but maybe we had animals come in here last year. We had a large sea turtle that came in from the Burj Al Arab sea turtle rehab facility, and that's the oldest rehab facility in the UAE, and they've seen hundreds of turtles, and they really started it off here, and they had a large forget if loggerhead or green that come in that had a massive, almost like a shark hook embedded in
Oh,
esophagus. And they didn't necessarily have the facilities to take it out because it was going to require major surgery. We were happy to help and bring him in, and we were able to had to make an incision through the neck and then through the esophagus, and then we had like four hands in there trying to pull this thing out. I had to
wow.
Dremel it off, so our hospital's open to the public; they can see it, and so I have a Dremel, and you see sparks flying out of this turtle, which is
Oh
something
my
you
God.
don't see every
Like
day,
Gamera.
but it's something that had to be done. We kept it as sterile as possible,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was massive, and they got that animal back, and they did an amazing job rehabilitating it, and that animal's out in the
Yeah.
ocean now. So
That's
it was a big female, so it was awesome.
that's such great
so
work.
one wonderful aspect of this is really treating animals the way you'd like to be treated, to really understand what they are, who they are, and how do you operate on a fish, for
Right?
example? I
Yeah,
mean,
It's
that's
tricky.
a great question. I get that question a lot. Um, Actually, operating on a fish is easy. They make great anesthetic patients. So remember, obviously, fish have gills, right? And they're absorbing the oxygen through the water. So what we do is we create a fish anesthetic device or FAD, and essentially we can utilize. Typically, we use powders in the water. So a really good drug that we commonly use is called tricaine methanosulfonate or MS222. It's actually related in the cocaine family. It's not cocaine, but don't go through the airport with it because you might
No.
get tapped. Um, but it is a powder that we can mix, and we mix it how we dose it. We dose it per volume of water. So usually in terrestrial or us, even us, we dose things by weight of animal, right? For a fish, we actually dose it by how much water they're in for
Oh,
most
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And so for this anesthetic, we dump it in the water. The fish starts to fall asleep because it's respirating and taking that drug in through the gills, which is a really neat aspect. I don't have to inject anything to this animal. This animal is naturally taking this drug systemically through the gills. And then once the animal goes out, we'll put them up on. Sometimes I use uh, cushions or furniture. I go to furniture stores and buy their foam padding, and I
Yeah.
cut out a little V in it, and we have several sizes for several sizes of fish, and we'll put the fish usually belly up, and we'll put a tube, recirculating pump that goes through the animal's mouth and pushes the water. There's a little receptacle at the bottom, and it's just a recirculating pump that's pushing water through, and the water falls through the gills and back out into the receptacle, and it's recirculating. So, and I can keep animals in that system. We keep the animal's skin moist. but I've done major surgeries on animals, on fish. I've held them out of water for hours at a time if need be, and that same goes for sharks too. I've done major surgery on sharks. I've even during my residency, one of the famous stories I did was I spayed a 1 gram or 2 gram zebrafish.
Oh my God.
Oh,
You can do it, and the fish lived. Fish
That's
lived for
awesome.
another. It lived its natural course, right? For another, I guess, 2 years. I think it died right before I ended my residency, but that's the normal lifespan.
Yeah.
Um, so fish actually are really they make good surgical patients and anesthetic patients. And then typically a lot of the things that we'll see with fish, we'll see with trauma. You know, not everybody loves their neighbor.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see aggressive trauma, and so wounds and things like that. Neoplasia, so cancers, fish can get that as well. Uh, Ectoparasites are probably the biggest ones that we see, or some of the issues that we deal with. So when we treat animals, we usually treat the whole system, right? So one of the cool things that I really love about aquatic medicine, it's no longer about the individual. We have to treat this living thing. We have to treat it as a living thing, and that goes from the water to the fish and to everything else that's in it. So we all know the ammonia cycle, right?
Mhm.
Ammonia, nitrite to nitrate, and each of those have their own toxicity levels, and that's what filters are for, right? They're filtering out the water, and you get
Yeah.
bacteria that breaks down ammonia to nitrite, which is less toxic than ammonia, and then nitrite to nitrate, which is less toxic than, the cascades goes
On
down,
and on. Yeah.
on and on. And so if I have an outbreak of a bacterial disease, right, and I want to treat the fish with an antibiotic, totally normal and totally something that we would do. But if I put that antimicrobial or that antibiotic in the water, I'm actually going to kill not only the bad bacteria, but also the good bacteria that's in that filter. And once
Yeah.
that bacteria is gone, all my ammonia products are going to super spike, and I'm going to kill the fish faster because of that, because of the ammonia products, than the actual disease itself. So we have to find like little ways to cheat the system sometimes, or try the different types of drugs, and that in itself is it's a living thing. So it's not
Yeah. It's living systems.
I'm not treating Sylvia and that only Sylvia. I'm treating the library behind you. I'm treating the computer. I'm treating everything. So
Yeah.
it all has to play into a little harmony, and that's a really cool aspect of aquatic medicine that not other disciplines get to deal with. So it's a
True.
challenging for sure,
Yeah.
but it also makes it fun.
We've got we're close to the top of the hour. We have two questions. We're gonna
Yeah, so sweet.
so Christian's saying that they also worked at SeaWorld hubs in San Diego. Best time of the life. Asking about the yellow-bellied sea snake. How do they hunt and capture their prey? And what is their favorite food?
Favorite foods. So usually, I can't tell you exact species. How they hunt their prey is they have the mechanoreceptor. They have many receptors. Their eyes are using. They're using olfactory as well, so smelling animals out. They usually are nocturnal, and they will hunt for diurnal animals. So a lot of the fish go into caves and things like that. The snakes are slender, and they can reach into those places. And then they're smelling them. They're sensing them. And then their venom is extremely toxic. And so once they bite that animal, it immobilizes it almost instantly, and they're able to swallow it whole. It's typical, same, all the aspects of a snake fall into place, right? They can open up their jaws, dislocate their jaws, and then move and quickly over the fish. Because of that, they also like to prey on fusiform like animals, so long, thin animals. They also eat eels.
Mhm.
There's lots of species that eat eels. So things that can fit easily down a tube, right?
Down the gullet.
Uh, yeah, yeah, down the gullet, down. So if you look like a tube, I can fit you down a tube. So they
Yeah.
they like to feed on fish like that.
Awesome. And then Jenny is asking, I'm wondering what the most common issues for rescue animals, sea snakes, turtles, and both, how many of these are clearly related to human impacts in the area, like boats and coastal development?
Oh, that question requires an essay. Um, I will. Okay, so I'll speak for this region real quick because it's short because we're still learning.
Yep.
Uh, One of the biggest thing, turtles are a main customer right now. And what we do see is we actually see a cold stunning like event, which is weird because I'm coming from the US and I lived on the East Coast where we would see a true cold stunning event. So remember, reptiles are ectotherms that rely on the environment to warm them for physiological processes to happen. And so if the all of a sudden the water gets super cold and they're not in a warm place, their body shuts down, they start floating, bacterial diseases, fungal diseases start happening. This is a very common thing that we see along the East Coast, especially. New England is prime location for that. And we see tons and thousands of turtles sometimes happens, and so we'll see these massive strandings of turtles come in. They're debilitated, fungal pneumonia, things like that. So I'm used to a true cold stunning, like and temperatures getting to 0 degrees, 32, below freezing. Here that happens as well, but I can tell you, it's sure ain't hell turning to 0 degrees out here
No,
in the Middle East.
no,
But what is
no.
interesting is um, the Arabian Gulf has probably the highest, it is the highest delta of temperature range in the world, right? And so a lot of the water is very shallow. And what you see is these small turtles, so probably second year turtles, so almost the size of my hand or a dinner plate. Because they're small, they have a larger surface area versus mass, right? And so they can easily lose body temperature faster than say a larger animal, and they don't have a lot of reserves. So what happens is, especially in the winter, uh, all of a sudden these animals are in a shallow area. It gets cold here at night during the winter, desert, it drops
Yeah.
quite significantly, quite fast. And so these animals get caught out in these shallow waters where that change is enough to to get them essentially cold stunned, even though it's not cold stunned from what you and I would typically recognize as.
Sure.
But it's enough of a delta and enough of sustained cold that it shocks these guys, and then they start floating. Epibiota starts clamoring to them. So these guys come in with tons of barnacles, algae, everything on them,
Wow.
and so that's one of the number one things that we see. Boat strikes we see, I saw that a lot more in the US than I do here, and we're still learning, right? This is our
What
second
about,
year of operation,
what
so
about
we're still learning a lot more.
entanglement
Entanglements.
with
Entanglements, we have seen, so surprisingly enough, dugongs, which are related to manatees. um, Abu Dhabi is the second largest population of dugongs in the world outside of Australia. So we see a lot of dugongs here in the grasslands further south, more going towards the Saudi Arabia. Um, and so we will also not only do we take in live animals, we take in dead animals because we can learn a lot from the dead as well. We have a great pathology team that we're able to look at this stuff and really get a lot of good information of why these animals are dying. That's half the game, right? And so we are seeing a lot of the dugong carcasses that we do receive are typically have uh, we don't see the net, but we do see is underlying tissue, soft tissue trauma
Yeah.
within the chest region, right? And that kind of, I can't tell you for sure, but man, it's looking more as we start getting more and more evidence and reporting this stuff. We're seeing the correlation with net entanglement. We have obviously seen others physically caught in net that are they're already dead, and we've
Yeah.
seen those lesions, but that's our biggest one we see with net entanglement.
Yeah.
they actually eat the plastic.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. The ingestion of plastics
yeah.
and netting.
Yes, actually, we are seeing that with our little turtles, and big turtles as well. We are seeing plastic ingestions enough where we're starting to we take X-rays of every animal that comes in. Not that you'll see plastic on the X-rays all the time. You just see impaction or bloating
Yeah.
of the GI tract, but enough that we will definitely do enemas with mineral oil or things like that to lubricate and hopefully that they pass. And we have found and successfully retrieved a lot of plastic, especially from these little guys. Big turtles, if they obviously ingest a lot, that can block them up. but I will tell you what, man, turtles have the amazing ability to pass a lot of different things. Their gut is strong,
Yep.
but over time, if you accumulate a lot of plastic, that becomes a giant type ball, and
Yeah, done.
yeah,
So, all right. Well, we crept a little bit past the top of the hour, but we love all these stories and just the enthusiasm and the curiosity just pouring forth is amazing.
yeah. This is fun
So,
stuff, man. It's fun stuff, guys.
thank you, and thank you to all of our viewers, and thank you, Ocean Elders. We really love everyone that shows up and participates in these conversations. Water connects us all, and we're incredibly grateful. We will be back later on this month talking about coral bleaching, another big issue for another kind of animal. Until then, remain curious and remember, take care of the ocean.
Take care of the ocean as if your life depends on it, because
It does.
it does.
Thank you, Trey. See you
Thank you,
next
guys.
time.
See ya.
Bye for now.